Hi everyone, it's Susie McCrae from The Susie Show, found on susiemccrae.com, and I'm so excited today to be doing this interview. It's one I've been wanting to do, and we finally were able to coordinate. I'm here with Steve Opalenik, and just a little side note, he happens to be the nephew of my brother-in-law, so there's a little family relationship. Yep, Chris, my brother-in-law, it's his nephew. And I really, really admire Steve and a lot of things he's done in his life. And that's part of the Susie Show, having people on and interviewing people who are adding value back to others, making a difference, having somewhat of an entrepreneurial spirit, but most importantly, love what they do and their purpose. Right. So Steve has done quite a few things in his young age. And he's going to talk about a little bit about what he's done and this nonprofit that he's been working on with his brother and sister, which I just find fascinating. So he's going to explain it far better than I can. So Steve, let's start off a little bit with, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do for your career. Okay. And then we'll get into your whole nonprofit. Right, okay?
Perfect. Yeah, so I'm a licensed mental health counselor, which pretty much just means that I have a piece of paper saying that I can counsel people.
He's counseling me on the couch right now.
Yeah, I got this like Freudian couch recently. It's been
We're in his office.
Great addition to the practice. Yeah, so I went to UMass Amherst for undergrad for psychology. Freudian slip there.
There'll be a few.
Then I went to Springfield College for my master's program to do marriage and family therapy and mental health.
And that's a great college too.
Yeah, it's
both of them.
I think that's really what, I've always been into fitness and health. Well, not always, but recently I've been into fitness and health. But going to Springfield College, I think, really facilitated.
Because their whole motto is like mind, body, spirit.
Yeah, and we'll come to that when we talk about the nonprofit. Okay. But yeah, so I am here in Wilbraham. In this office, I do counseling. Actually, one of my old professors from Springfield, this is his business.
Oh, nice.
And he had contacted me and saying that, he needed someone to meet with children and do some counseling, and just through negotiations, as they're able to come on and switch to full time here. I left my old job.
Yeah, you used to be in the eastern part of the state for a while.
Well, my wife and I were in Boston for a little bit. I was doing some family counseling out there for a couple great nonprofits, and so we came back here to be closer to the family because
they have a huge family,
as you know.
Yes,
a lot of the family is out here, so we moved back here. And, I had taken a job working for insurance, doing some case management, which wasn't really my style.
Not your cup of tea.
Not my cup of tea. No. It paid the bills. I always worked with great people. I got to do some good work, but no real face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, and it probably wasn't sparking you inside like...
Right, yeah. One of my biggest things is I like to try to help people problem solve and think outside the box. And with that, it's very like a linear approach. You're like, oh, you do this assessment, you put this in place, you do this. And, I would try to interject some of my personality into it. And, at times I think it worked, but it was just very daunting, It wasn't that hard of a job, but it was like grueling to make it through the 8 hours and not have like... fun.
Yeah, and so you in your mind were probably thinking there's got to be another way that I can find my purpose and do other things that light you up.
Right.
That's how I call it. That light you up, that you want to get going in the morning and get going to do it.
And that's kind of where the nonprofit came in, but I took this opportunity because it would help me build the nonprofit, because even though I work here full time, it's only 25 to 30 hours a week, so it allows me to
a little bit of flexibility to start your nonprofit.
Yeah, I'd spent some time doing that, looking into different ventures for the nonprofit. So
okay, so let's start talking about the nonprofit and how that all came about. And last person I interviewed, my nephew Ryan, he said that he and his father-in-law were having a couple beers in the Bahamas, and that's when they came up with
That's
an
where they
idea.
came up
So
with
I'm sure you have a story to tell about how this came up.
So it's actually kind of funny. I was doing private practice when I was doing insurance work too, and I had just had a daughter around the same time. So I ended up stopping the private practice because it was just taking too much time away from my family at the time.
His daughter's adorable.
she's
she makes an appearance once in a while on Facebook.
Yeah,
not too frequently.
She does yoga with me when I do yoga, so it's like she's really motivated to be into exercise.
You're starting her young.
Yeah, I do a handstand, and she'll be like, "Me handstand, Dad?" I'm like, "We'll do a downward dog and lift her leg up." And she's really funny. And my siblings, we've talked about having competitions with our kids in the future, like the Apollo Olympics, we call it. So I got a trainer.
Apollo Olympics.
I got a trainer while I have this time, ahead of them. So she's ready.
She's ready to go. They're very competitive. I saw some sort of watermelon thing, which that's a whole other interview. We have to get the entire family on a lawn. Okay.
But before, I was weighing if I wanted to do my own private practice instead of the insurance, or if I was going to do insurance instead of private practice. So I was looking around for different places, and I just really felt like for the cost of it, going into private practice for myself didn't really align. And why was I looking at one room to do private practice when that's not the full scope of what I wanted to do? I wanted to merge, that mind, body, spirit, Springfield College kind of approach.
Motto, yeah.
And so I talked to my brother. My brother, teaches some martial arts. He teaches Tai Chi, some Bagua, Xing Yi, just all these different. He was in China and Taiwan for like 6 or 7 years, I think, studying martial arts.
Wow.
And
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was gone for a good period of time, and he's just super knowledgeable about that stuff. So I was doing it.
We might have to interview him.
Yeah, I think that.
And your sister. Yeah, we're gonna get them all on.
they're gonna throw so much shade at me. And so Marcus, my brother, and I were doing. He was teaching me some Bagua, which is one of the forms he does. And we were just talking about like the mind and how it relates to the body, and we got into some really esoteric stuff and like very like, shapes and spirals, and like how learning new body movements kind of reshapes your brain and kind of engages with like the neuroplasticity of your brain and forms new neuron connections, and all while we were just like on Amherst Common, like looking like we're fighting invisible people because we're doing this Bagua thing.
You wouldn't be the only one on Amherst Common doing that.
And so we, in talking about it, I was just like, why don't we do something like that? Like, why don't we build something that encompasses that, along with like counseling, along with like what we're into, like body weight exercises and nutrition, and just all these
and sort of like the overall theme of like healing almost.
Right. Yeah. So it's like instead of isolating health and wellness and healing, the healing process from like, oh, you go to this place to do that, you go to this place to do that, and there's a very real feeling that like, oh, medical doctors are focused on this, so I go to them for physical health, and mental health practitioners, oh, that's if I have a disorder or like anxiety or depression, so I go to them this. And it doesn't, like, if you separate it, you don't really get the full scope of the healing process. It's not something like when you isolate like that, you're just kind of fixing one thing in like a system that's broken down.
Right. And I used to manage primary care practices as part of my former life. And I found that was very difficult a lot of time for patients. They'd come to their primary care provider, then they would be referred out to maybe for some therapy. And now they have to go and develop relationships in another office with another group. And it can cause a lot of stress and anxiety. And then they go to another specialist, and sometimes all of those dots aren't connected.
Right.
And they're trying, people are really working diligently to have that cohesiveness, but sometimes it's the patient who suffers the most.
I definitely agree. I can't tell you how many people I have come in and they're just like, they have high anxiety and they're so anxious about coming into a new place. And
exactly.
Like,
they're not familiar with the people at the front desk,
right,
even.
Yeah, and then it's another co-payment with their insurance. When
Yeah.
you look at it. It's like, oh, I just paid $20 to see and that's relatively low for a co-payment to see my doctor, and then like, oh, I have to pay like $30 to come see this person, and if I come weekly, it adds up.
And then what happens is,
not to say to my clients don't come.
Yes, you still come.
It'd be good to see.
But I think what happens is it puts up stop signs for people and reasons and barriers for them not to go, whether it's they have to travel to all these different locations, the co-pays, the continuity of care kind of gets lost.
Yeah, it's just one more thing to look at. We're like, well, maybe I shouldn't do that because this, and this.
Right. It gives them an out.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so my brother and I talked about it, and then really close to that, my sister, Caitlin, had become certified as a PIO instructor, which is, a Beachbody program, which does Pilates and yoga hybrid. So I had talked to her. She's a vet tech at a local animal hospital, and she loves that work, but it's pretty intensive too.
Oh yeah.
And so we had talked about like, hey, if we have this vehicle to do what we really all enjoy doing, and doing some coaching, doing some life coaching, doing, merging all these things, like, are you guys interested? And both of them were like, yeah.
Wow.
Let's do it. So it took a while. We had partnered with a local addiction recovery group in Belchertown called SOAR.
Okay.
And, they really helped us because they were going through some of the process, so they gave us a leg to stand on, and they had an open space. So we did, I did a calisthenics class with them. Marcus did like a martial yoga class, which is what he was calling it. It was just like using the martial arts to kind of get in tune with your body and work your body.
Focus.
Yeah. Caitlin did like the PIO class for them. I did a Couch to 5K class for them too. So
Couch to 5K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My cousin Carrie did that, and she just like, she was so dedicated.
She's awesome.
She destroyed the 5K she ran with me. Like she beat her previous PR by like a minute or two.
Yeah.
She'll have to probably comment on this and tell me the actual time, but she,
we'll get that
her
from
dedication
Carrie,
was like,
she is really focused on her health journey.
Right.
I know.
Yeah, I think she's doing some plexus.
Yeah, yeah, she's good.
Really cool.
She's awesome. She's an inspiration to a lot of people. Right. Yeah.
And, so through that process, just talking about it, we really took time to really try to shape what we wanted to do. We met with a lawyer downtown in Springfield. He helped us out and like amazingly agreed to do all our filing for the price of the filing, and we're gonna, once we get our gym actually open, it's not quite open yet, we're gonna kind of barter with him and kind of take
that's great, because he's probably feeling like he's part of reaching out and adding value by doing that.
So it was amazing. Everyone we've connected to through this process of getting established as a nonprofit has been like so amazing about it. And our big push with the Promethean Project, that's the name of the nonprofit.
Yeah, we're gonna oh yeah, that's still doing okay. It says click photo booth to resume. We're okay. We're gonna talk a little bit about that project because I have a lovely T-shirt. So you have the whole name and everything. Okay, so you went the lawyer.
Yeah,
there's like a lot of business part of it.
Right. Yeah.
Insurance
stuff that we had to create a business plan for the lawyer so he'd feel comfortable filing everything, and that was eye-opening to me because sitting down and like not gypping ourselves like what we want to make and like what we want to charge for services and stuff like that. I was playing like really low key with it, and he was just like, "You got to be realistic. This is a business, even though it's a nonprofit."
But that's good. That's all part of the learning curve too, because it sounds great when you're sitting down and you're all talking about it, but when you put it down on paper, you have to have some realistic goals.
Yeah, I mean,
if not, you're not going to really get people on board to help you.
Right,
either.
And we need to thrive. We don't just need to kind of flounder about, So, so that was really cool, and eye-opening, and just pointed us in the right direction. And ever since everyone I've talked to has been like, oh, I know someone who can help you out, and so it's been a really good connection.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about. Give me an example of how someone would get referred to your project. Okay, so people can understand, you know it probably like the back of your hand, but people watching may say, hey, this sounds very interesting, or I know someone this would be great for. Right. How does that whole kind of basic process work?
So the process right now is like we have a website that a buddy of mine helped me put together. It's still in its infancy, but we're going to be building it up a little bit more. So there's a direct contact there.
Okay.
It's the PrometheanProject.org.
PrometheanProject.org, and I'll be posting all the information about Steve for his brother and sister and the whole project. So.
Awesome.
Okay.
And so you can connect with us through there. I have a Facebook website that you can also connect to.
We'll put that on the video.
And then we've been doing a lot of word of mouth, and then also...
Which is unbelievable. The networking word of mouth thing.
Networking really pays off, and my old life as an insurance, not insurance worker, but like a case manager for people, I've made some really good connections with local mental health facilities and primary care facilities. So when I was leaving that, they were like, once you get everything up and running, let us know, because we'll send people your way.
So, part of what you're saying when before we started the video was so you have someone who needs to heal or whatever. They're going to come and get all of those kind of resources. But it's very, very interesting because you had mentioned like even someone who has had major heart surgery. Right. Okay, so what comes with heart surgery, just knowing, just in my life experience with people I've known, there is a lot going on, not just physically. There can be depression, anxiety. They get their surgery. A lot of times they have to go for rehab, just trying to get their strength back. But it sounds like you have such an all-encompassing process that not just fixing the scar and getting their blood pressure regulated and all that. That's all great. That's all the clinical things we want. What do they need to do? But there is such a social thing going on for these people too, because it's a lot. It's a lot on them.
Yeah, it's such a change, and it's almost like rebuilding after like such a traumatic event.
So you talked a lot about the community piece too.
Yeah. So what Susie's talking about is before we were filming, we were talking about there's 4 tenets that we kind of built the nonprofit on, and that's like a sense of nutrition, a sense of exercise, a sense of spirit or meditation, and then like the last pillar that we built it on was the sense of community. And those are like the approaches that we want to build through the nonprofit for people.
The community one, the other 3 are wonderful, but I think that the community one is the one that really puts the icing on the cake. I know, like I said, in my former position as a manager of primary care practices, we had started a process where we had people who were struggling with type 2 diabetes. And we ended up having some group meetings so they could share ideas, and the doctor would be involved and would do check-ins with them, and they'd do counseling. And I observed this on a couple of occasions. And what it did was it had them network and become friends with other people who were possibly going through, I don't want to say it was like a support group, but it really was kind of like a support group where they didn't feel like they were out on an island struggling with the same issues. They had people they could communicate with.
So like the biggest thing, so I like that story because that's kind of where I came with the idea of the community piece, is that the fact that you're going through something, whether it's like wanting to lose weight, or like you have a mental health diagnosis, or you have a physical like diagnosis, it can be really like isolating. And you start to define yourself by that diagnosis, or like that. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to about depression and anxiety, and it's like I try to talk to people about them, but no one understands my depression. No one
Which is
understands my
probably a
anxiety.
true
Yeah,
fact.
yeah. I mean, unless you've really like experienced it, it's really hard to talk to someone about crippling depression or anxiety because it's, you know, it's like you try to say this and then their response is like, well, just don't think that way.
Yeah. Or just do this. This will make you feel better.
Right.
Or go out for a walk. You'll feel better.
Yeah, something like that. And you know, those aren't bad recommendations.
No, but people are trying to help, but and you're right, until they've been in the shoes or understand what's going on.
And so the sense of community is a big thing, because when you start to identify yourself as a depressed person, or you know, someone in recovery, or like an addict or something like that, like I said, it becomes isolating, and that's who you define yourself as.
Right, it's all encompassing, and you label yourself almost.
So the community piece, I think, is great because it redefines that. You know, you're like, oh, I'm not an addict. I'm someone who struggles with addiction, and even that small change is like
the words we use and the mindset.
Exactly, it changes the mindset. Like,
but you may get someone then who's part of this, who meets someone who just had major heart surgery, and you might have someone who's dealing with addiction, and they may offer support to each other in a dynamic way that you would never think.
So it becomes different than like, oh, I'm going to this place for this identifying quality because everyone has it. It becomes more like, oh, I'm going here because I'm in the process of healing, and so are the other people coming in here.
Yeah.
So it becomes more like you can network and can be more focused on the healing process than like what ails you coming into it, if that makes sense.
And that is very, very profound. And I think that in itself is, it's not a silo of people that you're coming here because you have a problem with addiction. You're coming here because you want to lose weight or get healthy. It's all encompassing.
Right.
So I love that. But what I love too is the T-shirt I got. That's one of the perks for being the host of the Susie Show. So I'm just going to show this a little bit. It says the Promethean Project, break the chains, find your flame.
Yeah.
And so this design, if you want to just explain a little bit.
So actually, my cousin-in-law, my wife's cousin, Shayna, she's a tattoo artist, and she actually designed it for us.
Did she do any of your tattoos?
She hasn't done any of mine yet, but
I think
I'm
you are
soon.
you get the record for the most tattoos of anyone I've interviewed so far. So far. Okay.
I'm actually getting tattooed in a week, so my buddy Jeremy.
So we'll have to come back and see that. Yeah. Okay, so they're a tattoo artist.
So she's a tattoo artist, and so I kind of gave her some ideas of what I wanted and explained the reason why the name, the Promethean Project. We were talking about it earlier. You know, the Prometheus myth is that Prometheus was a god. He gave humans flame and fire so that they could survive. The other part of it was that he was tortured for that by the other gods.
Yeah,
but
they kind of cut open and they had the crow.
Yeah,
I remember all of that.
We're not going to push that part.
Yeah.
We're the first part. And so the idea is to find your inner potential, to find your inner flame. So, you know, we're very open. We're not the ones giving you the flame. We're just like assistants for you to find your own kind of inner flame. And so that's why the logo is the holding of the flame.
I absolutely love that because it's so true. I mean, when people say, "Oh, can you motivate me? Can you do this? Can you do that?" You know, it really does come from that inner flame.
Right.
And I just see it as you guys are kind of helping fan it by providing the resources you're going to provide. But if people don't have this, they're not going to be successful. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's not just one thing. I think a lot of things happen in your life, and everyone does have this flame, but once you connect with something that really aligns with you, I think that brings it back to life. And that's why I think this is so wonderful that you guys are going to have this project.
Right.
So, you know, before we wrap things up, because I'm sure we're going to be doing more interviews with Steve and his group as this progresses and the gym opens, we can go there and maybe we can, you know, do some interviews with some people. what if people want to is there a way to get involved, or are you still not at that point yet if they want to like donate or contribute to the nonprofit?
So the website has a donation page that you can contribute to that.
Okay, and I'll be putting that up, I promise.
And
okay.
We're actually going to be engaging in some community events. A friend of mine does the South Hadley Farmers Market, and they've invited us to kind of come and have a booth. And I've been putting together some information on mindful eating that I'm going to talk about.
Mindful eating?
Mindful eating,
yeah.
And so we'll be doing some outreach into the community. Caitlin has a PIO class she runs in Northampton almost every Friday.
Okay.
So that's a good place to kind of come and kind of see that class. Right now we're not running classes until we get the gym space. Marcus will do some Tai Chi and some of that stuff in the community as well. And he does some in Belchertown for the rec department.
Okay, that's
So he's out there making some waves with that too.
So it's kind of like you guys are building and building and building. And
and that's that was one of the recommendations that when we met with the lawyer. We were so preoccupied of having a space so we can start like implementing it, and he's like, just reach out to the community right now and just do small stuff, and then that will build the network. You'll start making some kind of gains, and then once you are in a comfortable position, you can find that space and it will come to you.
Yeah, and I know I had mentioned before we started, I love this book. I hope I screw this up, and like Kyle sees. And it talks about that. Sometimes we have these great ideas and we want to do things, but then we get stuck with this.
Right.
And then we have to go back to here. And I say this in a lot of my interviews, is like when you work from here and just keep yourself open.
Right.
This can get you in trouble sometimes, but that's where the possibilities open.
Mm-hmm.
And I even look at the Susie show. I mean, I'm in my embryonic stages, and I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm just loving what I do and doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that what I can do to add value back to everyone and to Steve and his group is to get this out into my network and all the other networks of people that I've interviewed. And there's a book called The Tipping Point, and it's a lot about the networking, is just word of mouth and getting the word out there. Yeah. And I definitely am going to be back with Steve, probably in a different location. Maybe I don't have to come on the couch. Maybe we can go to
It's therapeutic.
It is there. It's very soft and nice. Yes. So I will make sure I get all the information to you guys. And Steve, it's been a pleasure. I always hug everybody afterwards. And I appreciate your time. And I am just extremely humbled and proud of what Steve and his brother and sister are doing. I think this is great. And I think it's going to be a nice avenue and resource for people to heal probably better, faster in that community.
Right.
And they're changing the world. And that is fabulous, instead of going with the same structure that's out there that doesn't always work.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the reasons we wanted a wellness gym or wellness center is because, like, when you think about going into a gym to make a change, it's very daunting, right? It's like,
usually by yourself.
There's going to be power lifters over here, and then like ultra marathon runners over there, so it's very intimidating. So our goal is to kind of keep it more low key and keep it more like welcoming and like being greeted and coming in and like doing assessments to be like, this plan is, these services are what could really help benefit you, and like, so each approach is going to be individualized. So it's not, we'll have groups, but like, it's not going to be like, oh, you have to do all this stuff.
Yeah. When
you really need to focus on something else. So
I think that's just great. And I think you hit the nail on the head too. Sometimes it is daunting for people they want to do something, they want to start something, but they're feeling like maybe a fish out of water if they go into this gym where you're right, it's like overwhelming. But it sounds like with your personality, your background, and with your brother and sister kind of welcoming people, I think it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. So
maybe after that, it's going to grow and grow and grow across the country.
That'd be great.
It would be great. Okay, well, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll be back again with Steve and his Promethean project. Thanks.